Welcome to this Kalidasia live stream. I'm Jason, the creator of the Kalidasia universe, and today we're going to start a brand new series and do something a fair amount different than what I've done for the past few months now. Everything that I've been doing up to this point has been all about painting the Kalidasia miniatures. I've got a few of them sitting over here. We can see the Heragul Pale Fox, which is one I did a few months, like 2 months, about a month ago. And then here's the one I just finished up last week, the Heragul Hammerhead. But I'm out of brand new miniatures to paint up. I got a few that I'm obviously developing. If you follow me on Instagram over at Kalidasia Games, you'll see pictures of this guy right here. Oh, that looks awful in the light. You see a giant white blob, don't you? Let's see if I can hold it. No, that doesn't help. No, okay. And that's not working. What this giant white blob is one of the pieces of the Lynx upgrade kit, which of course is the new Heragul battle cruiser. So follow me at Kalidasia Games. You can spell Kalidasia down here along the bottom. And you can see that in actual proper detail over there, because it looks a lot cooler and then it's not just a light white blob, right? So, alright. What I'm going to do now for this series is I'm going to take you from start to finish of designing a brand new miniature, or in this case, redesigning a warship into a miniature. What you see hiding here in the opposite corner, oh, no, not, I should point in the direction, there you go, that guy right up there, that is the Heragul Saber. The Heragul Saber is an older, one second, I hit a button here. Let me mute that, so you can accidentally... Just finished the audio settings, sorry about that. So the Heragul Saber is a warship that came out way back in the days of the Admiral Rules pack. It was actually one of the first, it's actually the first Heragul warship in game terms to get, oh no, sorry, second one, Tiger Shark got first. Second Heragul warship to actually get a name, the Tiger Shark being the first one. But what it is, it's a heavy bomber that carries mines, but I'm also going to be redesigning a different version of it. So what I'm doing here is it's going to be redesigned into a miniature. So I'm taking the whole process of start to finish of basically taking this old guy here, redoing the concept art, doing some architectural drawings, turning into 3D models, get a 3D printed and resin casting and all that stuff to create a brand new miniature for the Heragul Saber. However, the name is going to be changed from the Saber to the Peregrine as the main chassis, and then a variant that I'm actually working on in this process is the Merlin. Now, thinking about, I'll explain all the details of why those names are such and such. Of course, if you know the naming convention of the Heragul warships, you'll probably know what a Peregrine and Merlin is and how they're related, but I'll talk more about that later. So let's go ahead and get this process started. And I'm probably going to talk mostly tonight about what I'm doing in terms of designing things and why I'm doing that. And based on all of that, I may be tossing a little bit of lore about this ship, about its past, why I name it the way it do, and all that fun kind of stuff. So let me slide on over here to my work camera. Alright, there we go. So I'm actually just going to be working off a pad of paper tonight, because the first step when I design these miniatures, like I said, is the concept art phase. I'm literally just throwing down ideas on paper and seeing what works. I do a lot of quick small sketches, then I go back and start refining things based on what I like. So I've just got a drawing pad of paper here in front of me. I've got an old little drawing kit. I'm going to pull out, just, you know, it's one of the, which is one of the pencils out of the drawing kit here. And my goal with the Heragul Peregrine is keep a very similar shape. The idea is, storyline-wise, the Heragul have taken the Saber, which is an old design. It's been around for a long time. It was never used very much until the Surikari came around, because the tactics of the Surikari, conveniently, the Saber was a good counter to the tactics of the Surikari, and that's why it's showing up now. Whereas for a long time, the Heragul didn't really use it. But what I want to do then is, as a reference, I've got, like I said here, is the Pale Fox, which is a newer version of the Heragul destroyer that was built relatively recently with the beginning of the Surikari invasion, and the Elsoran Hammerhead, same story there, an old warship that was updated to match the more rigorous combat standards introduced by the Surikari invasion. So what I want to do is do the same kind of thing, take this old Saber design here, and basically give it a bit of a makeover as using modern Heragul technology and modern Heragul armor designs. You're going to have a lot of little cooling vents, much more cooling vents, bigger, more defined engines. You're going to see more overlapping armor panels and staggered armor panels for the new modern active armor system the Heragul have, compared to what was available thousands of years ago, and such and such. So let me just slide these guys out of the way. Oh, and I should do a shameless plug because this is what it's all about. The Heragul miniatures you see over here, they're available for sale over at kalidasia.com/live. You can find links to buy those if you're interested in these particular miniatures here. You know, shameless plug, that's what I'm here to do, right? Alright, so of course if you're watching here live on twitch.tv, feel free to ask any questions in the chat room as to what I'm doing. And if you're watching this later on YouTube, feel free to post any comments there if you have any questions or want me to clarify something or whatever it may be. So literally what I'm going to do when it comes to redesigning this tiny little token right here, because this is the actual game token that the Heragul Peregrine used, or the Saber, back in the Admiral Rules Pack days. I'm just going to start sketching down a overall basic shape. I'm going to keep kind of jumping from sketch to sketch and just trying to see what exactly I like. I kind of like how it looks now, but I'm going to give it probably a little bit more defined engines, a little more, I don't know, we'll see what, you know, I'm kind of like just in my, it's in my head, but you know, I'm trying to really explain it. Uh-oh, one second here, my monitor's breaking down. My computer here, I'm watching my own stream on, falling apart right now. So let me just start sketching out ideas and then we'll see what happens. So I'm just getting very basic shapes down. I'm thinking, because when it comes to kind of choosing the shapes of the ship, there is definitely some thoughts of functionality that are going into it. Of course, this is science fiction, right? But even though it's science fiction, you still want kind of consistent functionality based on the technology of how the universe and how the ships kind of work as it is. So I'm kind of keeping this little bit of a wing-like shape to the miniature. I'm just like I said, I'm literally just sketching down really fast, large shapes to get an idea of what I'm thinking, and I'll obviously be refined later on and make it look better. I do like the wings idea. Now, even though, of course, we're talking spacecraft here, the wings serve a couple different purposes, even though clearly this thing can't enter, you know, an atmosphere, travel in a planet or whatever it may be. The wings don't help aerodynamically, but they do give the warship more surface area for any kind of weapons. This is a relatively small ship in terms of the Kalidasia universe. It's called the Corvette class. That's actually what the class is going to be called when it does eventually come out in second edition. It's going to be called the Corvette class. So it's actually a lot smaller than these miniatures I've been showing off here, which means there's a lot of things about that, but mainly giving it more surface area under the wings to maybe mount some guns, because the Merlin, which is the gunship version of it, so it's going to carry 4 forward-mounted fire cannons, which are the basic cannons that the warships in the Heragul universe carry. So you know, giving the ship like I said, more surface area to mount weapons is good. Plus, when you think about it in terms of crew, I'm thinking I'm going to actually have some more engines back here. The crew area is going to be in the main hall. Now, the main hall, of course, being the crew area, is where you're going to get air pressure, atmosphere. You're going to get oxygen going on there. And that means, obviously, oxygen plus fuel and weapons equals explosion. So if you could store, say, your fuel and ammunition away from where your main crew area is, even though you've got highly combustible materials, being in space, there is no oxygen outside the atmosphere of the ship that can interact with said fuel and cause violent explosions. So having these wing areas off to the side is a great way to kind of also store more volatile substances that you don't want to be near crew areas because of the possible risk, albeit fairly low, of mixing in oxygen versus combustibles with weapons fire, kaboom kind of a thing. So okay, that's one possible shape. I don't really like that one very much. What I'm thinking is I actually want engines on the wingtips. There's actually, or at the very least, along the back here of the wingtips, I do want a flat area at the wingtips. Now, the reason for having a sharp corner right here, this little flat here, there is a very practical purpose there. So I'm even thinking beyond not just functionality inside the sci-fi universe, but also functionality from how you make this thing in terms of resin casting. Let me actually grab some resin molds I've got right here. That giant white blob I showed you up in a moment here, this is the resin mold that made it. I wonder if you can see, probably see it better. Hey, there you go. Now you can see it better in this camera. This is the better camera than what I got looking at me at the start here. So you can see this is the mold that made it. And these lines up here are all fill and vent lines where the resin goes in and air comes out. And it's important to know that when you're making resin cast or pewter cast or whatever it is, you got to have things like this, this details depending on what type of material you're working with. But even when you're in the very early phases of design, you got to think about this, because these areas where the vents are, there can't be any detail. It's gonna be flat, no detail areas. So you kind of have to build a few of those into the warship based on where you think the resin or the air bubbles during the resin casting process would actually get trapped. And with a wing type ship like the Peregrine here, these are right here. These are great places for where the resin is going to get trapped. Or sorry, where the air bubbles is going to get trapped. So you're going to want to have vents here in the corner for the air bubbles to escape. So I'm kind of already factoring that portion in to how I'm designing the thing. But let me go back to just pretty much kind of tossing stuff down and see what I think. I want kind of larger wings. Maybe let's try a little bit more of a larger wing shape. This guy is very narrow, nothing too terribly exciting. And I want these multiple layers going on here. So I could do kind of like what the Pale Fox has. Oh, missile fell off. Let me get the missile back on there. And have these bands of armor. I'm thinking I might do something like that, where we're going to see some bands of armor run along here. So maybe two bands of armor going up the middle. What if we do the middle right here? And we could probably then keep this canopy-like thing. Because this ship is small enough to where it probably would have a visible canopy. It's maybe the size of a large fighter. It's maybe, I might be thinking probably bigger than this. Yeah, it's probably much bigger than the space shuttle is. For those of you familiar with actual Earth spacecraft, in case you're some alien watching this, you never know. Of course, if you're alien watching this, you're probably more familiar with what the space shuttle is in terms of size and capabilities than what the average person on Earth is. But regardless. So let's see if we can do, like, here's this kind of second layer of brown armor. I'm thinking we have the main canopy going along here. What I am thinking along the back is I would want to have two discernible engines. I think just that looks kind of cool. It gives a little bit of variety. You can see things here like in the Pale Fox. Two large engines are kind of interesting. Any multiple engine valves here, same thing along with the Heragul ship, is that it's just more detail. And more detail is never a bad thing. Plus having these two engines at the very back here. Once again, this goes down to thinking about the resin filling. On the Pale Fox here, the reason I build these little engine exhaust things with green stuff is both these engines here are the resin fill and vents, along with there's resin vents here and here as well. And therefore these engines are normally very flat, not very detailed surfaces. And that works very well with a lot of ships, is where you use the engines to be the fill points, because they're naturally the back of the ship, and then the resin flows in from top to bottom of the mold. So that's another advantage of having these engines in the back. So I'm thinking probably some engines in the back. We'll do something like that. Bring that in. Very likely the engines will likely be on the bottom of the ship. I think I just like that look a little bit better. You might do something like this where you can kind of see the engines. So you'll be able to see there's this area here is going to be a little bit lower probably. And then you would have, this is the middle point. Another thing you can kind of do to speed this process up, to be honest with you, is at least the Kalidasia warships are almost always symmetrical. And if they're not symmetrical for some weird reason, it's some just very slight offset, like the Tiger Shark and its fire rail launchers is a little bit offset. But I can really just draw half the warship and kind of work with that and decide, do I like how that's going? Yes, no. And there's the band. We can make these bands of armor go up all the way, and then we can have a few steps here, kind of like what you see on the sides of the Pale Fox. I think that's a very nice little look there. So I'm kind of liking where this is going. I like this boxy wing for it a little bit better than this little aerodynamic thing I got going on over here. Because once again, it's a spacecraft. The wings are more for practical and storing fuel, storing weapons, things like that, than they are in terms of being aerodynamic. Plus, I also would like to put some sort of engine along the bottom of these wings, just so that, like, the ship's got just to make basically the warship be a giant, massive engine. So it's got really 4 engines to it, 2 along the edges of the wings, and I'm thinking, you know, 2 back here along the back of the warship. Now, as I keep just sketching out more things here, let's talk a little bit about the name. The Peregrine is the main class, the Merlin being one of the subclasses, and I think the third subclass, well, not subclass, the third ship along this in the Corvette scale, which is actually not based in the Peregrine, is going to be called the Kestrel. And so for those of you out there, if you're like me and are fans of birds of prey, you know those all 3 are falcons. And different types of falcons, different kind of, I think the Kestrel's a very broad species of falcon. It's the American Kestrel. They're also, I believe, I know the Peregrine is found in Michigan. The Merlin can sometimes show up around here. I don't know about the American Kestrel. I think it probably does too. It's pretty much all over the country, I believe. But you know, they're nice little local, a lot of local birds, and they're really cool from an environmental aspect. The Peregrine is one of the great stories of basically how we brought a animal back from the brink of extinction and brought it to the point where it's been off the endangered species list for like almost 20 years now. It's fantastic. And it's a beautiful bird. Holy crap. The peregrines are just beautiful. Okay, anyway. So, and all the Heragul warships are named after apex predators, where all of them within a particular class are all related. All the frigates are sharks. They are shark names. The destroyers are all canines, and now these guys are all falcons. So let me work with this concept a little bit more. I'll just keep doing the half of it. So we have the main body section. Let's make this a little bit less wide up here. And then let's decide, let's move the wings back a little bit, make them a little bit swept back. And I want to, let's try. What I think I'm gonna do, I think I can cast this, is, so we're gonna bring the wings out a little bit, and I'm gonna bring them, instead of wings being straight like this, I am going to sweep them back in a little bit. So why don't we do something like this, make the ship a little bit longer now. So we go back like this, so let's see, so it'll be something like that, bring it in. So the actual wing, we'll have it come back, try coming back in like that, see how that looks. And then here's our sharp corner here. And then the engine that swings underneath it. That way it can kind of expose the side a little bit, we'll give it some detail. And there's where the approximate shape of the engine is going to be. I think that would be kind of cool to see. So you get a little bit of the engine sticking out the side. I think right here, there is a little bit of a concern right here that maybe resin can pile up. I don't know. It's tough. You know, I have to think about it. It's because, like I said, I'm still thinking about the whole resin casting process, even this early in the concept phase portion of it. And, you know, I want to be able to cast this guy as one piece. You know, you could make them in multiple pieces, but it's easier for what I'm going to, this miniature, because it's going to be so small. It's going to be about the size of this guy. It would just be easier to cast them in faster as one piece. And there's other reasons why I want to do that. I got different kind of plans to use the miniature for and things like that. So let's see. So we have the canopy section coming back like this. That's probably too far swept out. We'll make it kind of come back. Make it go back to here. Now the one thing I don't have right now is I don't have an eraser out, and that's not a bad thing during this kind of concept phase. I'm just scribbling stuff down. I'm just trying different ideas out and seeing kind of what sticks. So you don't have to always have an eraser and make mistakes. That way you can kind of go back and you can just draw a little bit darker in your concept art, and that way you can kind of see your thought patterns looking backwards. It's not a bad thing to keep your old ideas laying around when you're very early on in the development stage. You very quickly see how things evolve and what you like and what you don't like. This is especially helpful when you get to digital painting and are trying to pose miniatures and kind of do posed artwork, and you're thinking, well, this pose doesn't look quite right. It's great to have your failed poses to look back upon and kind of improve the pose a little bit and make it look a little bit more correct. So I'm kind of liking that there. I'm liking this little shape at the moment. And then we can go here. I like how the design of the saber here. I'm going to use the saber and peregrine interchangeably because technically this is still called the saber. The peregrine is a different ship. That's a modified version of this chassis. That's you know, storyline wise, that's how it works. So it's not like the saber is all of a sudden gone. They would technically still be around, and maybe within the context of the game, I may introduce the saber in the second edition in addition to just having the peregrine. So if you want to use technically the original saber in battle, you can, versus the new ship. But I like the idea of how the armor, this top level armor, juts out a little bit here, and then I can kind of sweep it back. And almost like in the saber, this top level armor piece does have its own little winglet effect too, and I kind of like that. So I'm going to do something like that. And once again, I want to have the two engines down here. So let's start putting in where the engine's probably going to be. And I like being able to see the engine a little bit underneath the armor, kind of like what I was working with over here. So let me see. This will be the end of the engine right here. We can kind of make it go in a little bit. So that's going to be kind of, this area is probably be some bare metal is the idea, where it's just the engine or the cooling vents or maybe thrusters. I'm going to end up figuring out tiny little details later on. This, like I said, once again, this is just getting a very broad basic shape of the ship, and we're going to go from there. Where do I want the engine to go out? I think the engine can start right here. So that's going to be where the engine and the edge of the ship is. Let's bring this guy in and make it go like that. I'm actually liking this. Kind of liking the shape that I'm working with right here. And we wanted this to be kind of bare metal, so let's see. So this area here is all the beige color. This up here is kind of the brown color, the Heragul Empire ships. I am going to bring this back up here. And part of the reason also from a quote functionality perspective why I'm putting an engine over here, not to give this ship just tons of engine power, but you can also mount, I can design the miniature vector thrusters that run along the side of the ship over here that are built in the engine, which would then, that's what you're using to maneuver with, and the main engines are just for adjusting your velocity. So you're firing the vector thrusters to turn yourself around to whatever direction you need to, and then you fire your main engines to adjust the velocity. And it just it's kind of a cool effect to have the vector thrusters effectively be vents along the main engines. It just looks cool that way, I think, and it would make sense for a tiny little ship. And if you probably see on the picture in the corner here, those little gray things that run along the sides of the fins up there, those are vector thrusters that were in the original 3D model that this little tiny thing here is based off of. This might actually, I think this actually probably came first and that came second. That's usually how it went, but you know. Alright, so let's do that. There we go, I like that. I'm actually liking that shape a little bit. So we got that there, then we have some armor bands, kind of like what the Pale Fox is rocking here. So we can do an armor band like that. Maybe we'll do one up here. I'm going to want to make these armor bands be equal. We can do some steps up. So these lines here are where the armor steps up. This is going to be a little bit of a shadowy region, just kind of like we got on the Pale Fox up here. And then maybe we'll do one more armor band that kind of goes along the front here. And then we can have one, so we'll have up here would be like, we'll put a canopy, we'll kind of put where a canopy, a quote, view screen might be. This thing is kind of small enough to where you would, like I said, you would have like a crew of 4 or 5 just sitting up here in the front. Most of the big warships, the bridge is not anywhere near the edge of the ship. It's in the middle because you don't want that getting blown up. The fact that most starships tend to put the bridge somewhere that makes sense if it was a naval warship doesn't make sense in space. You want your bridge protected. You have sensors and video screens and all sorts of crap on the outside of the ship to tell the crew what's going on. There's no advantage to having the crew sitting right here in this spot looking out. That just doesn't make any sense in space. It's once again one of those things where they're carrying over the ideas of naval combat and space combat, which doesn't make any sense, right? Naval space combat, I've talked about this plenty of times before, is nothing to do with naval combat. Ship design makes no sense, and stop asking me about 3D space. I go to conventions and people are always like, how do you represent 3D space in your game? And I'm like, you know, it doesn't matter, because the ships are designed to factor in with 3D space. All that really matters is your position, distance and velocity wise relative to the other warships. And 3 dimensions honestly doesn't add all that much to that when you got fancy computer controlled warships that are tracking you from all different directions. It's 3D space only makes sense in naval combat because your main ships are stuck on a flat plane and there's freaking planes above them that can bomb them, and you have to realize that, oh crap, we need armor on our decks now where we didn't need to before. Whereas in, you know, starships, you need armor all around because, yes, you can be shot from up here. You would not build the top of your warship have thinner armor than the side like a Navy warship might have, because the risk of getting hit on the top is the same as it is getting hit dead on or from the side. You know, it just... Random pet peeve. Okay, so I'm starting to put a little bit of some of the armor panels on here. I do like this shape. I think this actually might be my final shape for the ship. Alright, well, let's start making it. Let's start adding some concept details going on here. So let me see. Okay, you can see the bottom of the pad here pretty good, so I'm going to start drawing down there right now. So I want to take this design here and blow it up, and that's going to let me start kind of figuring out some overall details about what goes where. And then what you can really do is jump in close and start really working on segments blown up as to where the details are, and start doing that level of concept work. So I'm kind of moving beyond the basic shapes. You can see here how it evolved, and then I'm moving on to start getting where stuff really is. So let me work down here. I'm working off the bottom of the page. So this is essentially here, the middle of the warship is the bottom of the page. I'm going to take this guy, rotate him, and get a nice long version of him. So let's think here. Once again, I'm not doing any measurements yet. Eventually I'll do some more detailed measurements, because at some point here, not only do I got to do a concept art of the top, but I got to do a concept art of the front, the side, and the back. And based on all 4 of those, and probably the bottom too. The bottom would be nice. And then based on all, let's see, top, bottom, side, front, back, top, bottom, side, 5 drawings. A little slow there. Based on those 5 drawings, I'll be able to use those to very easily make a detailed 3D model of them, of the ship. And let me just go ahead. So if I do something like that, it's about double scale. That's that thing. So here's our canopy area. Let me just do very light as all possible. So doing some very light work here. And then we have the wing, which kind of comes out a little bit further beyond, so maybe right around here is where the wing's gonna come out. We'll make it go out to, so if that's that distance, then that's that. So if that's that, then you're really looking right around here. So somewhere around here, I'd say, is where the wing is gonna come out to. So that's gonna go like that. So there's our wing coming out. This thing keeps going though until past the wing point. So this right here is kind of like the second layer of the armor that you're seeing. Alright. This one keeps going on for a while, and it probably comes to right about there. And then we have that piece of the armor there, and that's going to come up here, and this is going to form like the 3rd level of this the armored hull here. So I want this to go up like here, and then this can go in, but we want to have this be armor. So what I think I'm going to do is have this multi-tiered. So this thing here comes in like that. Well, actually, let's make it do that. And this is where, well, whatever, still concept art. I'm not quite getting to the detailed phase yet, so I don't need to erase stuff. I'll darken in the main lines in a minute, so I know what's kind of me thinking, and then what's actually going to be the basis for the final detailed concept artwork. All right, so this can come in like that. So this is obviously staggered. So this area here is going to be a little bit higher than this area. And then down here, we'll swing that out like this. And this is the canopy again. And I'm thinking, yeah. So what I'm thinking here is this is sloping downwards. So you're kind of if you can imagine. So the center of the ship right here is higher up than out here. So these are sloping down. I think the wings are swept back a little bit, so the wings are sloping down as well. So this is all kind of pointing, the elevation wise. Here's the highest point. This is the lowest point. Kind of like if you do look at the 3D model, it's tough to tell, but there is a little bit of sweepiness to the nose, and maybe there's a tiny bit of kind of downward sweeping motion to the wings and the outside. So this guy then goes back for a little ways. And here we go. Here's our main. So our main wing would probably go approximately straight back. Like I said, this is still concept art, so I don't need to get nice, perfect straight lines. And it can go in a little bit, so something like that right there. And let's send this guy like that. So here's our wing that's sweeping back a little bit. Now, I need to start also thinking about the armament of the ship. I keep talking about the Peregrine versus the Merlin. The Peregrine is just the updated version of the Saber. The Saber carries what are called thermal bombs. Thermal bombs are nuclear weapons. They're mines. They're a type of kind of semi-intelligent mine layer. So whereas a missile tends to be able to, your fire has a lot of fuel, it can fly long distances. The mines are really about just dropping tons of these things out, and when a warship comes by, it has enough fuel to just very quickly lock onto it and fly into it. And it's a very deadly weapon, so whereas a missile doesn't carry a huge payload for practical purposes, the thermal bombs have a pretty nasty payload to them. And they become kind of an area of denial. So it forces the incoming ships to alter their orbital trajectories, allowing you to kind of factor those altered trajectories into your battle plans, unless the enemies want to fly right through the minefield to take crap tons of damage. It's about orbital region denial. Because of course you got to think of it in terms of orbital trajectories, because you don't really defend physical regions in space because everything's orbiting the planet. You defend orbital paths and orbital trajectories, so orbits around the planet, whether it's circular, elliptical, whatever it is. You defend orbits, not particular regions above a planet. Unless, of course, you're in geostationary orbit, but vast majority of orbits are not geostationary. And for the most part, a geostationary orbit is not an effective way to defend a planet. Of course, that depends on the size of the planet, rotation speed, mass, blah, 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 because geostationary orbit is a different position based on all that stuff. But anyway, okay, the engine. So I keep talking about how I want an engine down here. Well, here's the bottom. Let's make this, that's probably right. Here's the bottom of our wing. So the engine's going to come out like this a little bit. And I'm going to be able to use the bottom of the engine here. That is going to become a fill point or a vent per se. My miniatures anymore, I really get to the point where fill points and vents are the same thing. And there's reasons for that, which I'll probably talk more about when I get into the actual details of resin casting. Which, of course, once again, a shameless plug. If you do like details of resin casting, I do have a very detailed video on how I made the molds for the Pale Fox up here. Or this is the main wolf technically, but the Heragul Destroyer. Yes, this is the main wolf. I did a very detailed hour and a half long tutorial on resin casting, basically making the molds for this guy and the whole thought process, everything that went into it. So it's long and you get a whole bunch of my horrible jokes, but it's super detailed if you want to know how you make molds, because there's just lots of fiddly bits to making molds. But once again, I'll go into more of that later on in this process. I'm going to make the mold for this live on the show. Okay, so this thing here kind of dives in a little bit. Why does it look differently? I'm thinking here, this is stretching out a lot further on this concept than it is up here, and I don't want that. I'm gonna, let me think about this for a minute. I think I'm gonna keep that, actually. Because you can see up here, this distance, if I do a really, this is a concept sketch, I can screw things up. This distance from here to here is a lot longer than this distance from here to there, right? I'm gonna keep this design though, I'm thinking. I don't know what exactly happened to cause that. Probably this should be a little bit further out. Let's make this a little bit further out. So, okay, we're gonna screw some stuff up here. We'll make that go out there. Make that go up like that. Engine. Yeah, we can still make the engine kind of big. Make the engine. Alright, so I'm just kind of, we're going to ignore this line here, pretend like this line's not there. I'm going to, let's do something like that. There's a lot of fuzziness right there, but I'll sort that out in a minute when I get these darker pencils out to draw the lines accordingly. My monitor froze on me again. Am I still streaming? I think so. Sometimes trying to watch yourself on your computer up here is not the best thing. Sometimes it doesn't work very well. Can I turn my... Hey! Oh, never mind. I still can only choose. I would turn on my own video resolution if I could, but I can't. You only get that if you're a popular Twitch channel, apparently. I'm not anywhere near there yet. Okay, so let's bring this guy back up in. And this needs to come up to like something like this. So here's our wingtip right here. It ends here. And then the wingtip kind of dives in like that. And then, so we're looking something along those lines. Yeah, that's right. So this end of the wingtip is kind of meant to be lined up somewhere up here. And that is then, if I slide this guy in like this, this is where the main engines are going to be hiding back here for the moment. So let's see. So our main engines, I'm going to get a little bit of a gap between this point here where it's the end of the wing and the engines. Just I think that looks a little bit cooler, because I'm just, at this point, you know, it's, hey, let's see what looks cool, right? Because in a moment here is when I'm going to start putting some details on this concept sketch. And then that's going to give me my basis for when I start doing kind of sectional detailed things. Alright, so this is the engine, kind of comes up like this. So this one's, again, here's that bare metal region that I've been talking about for the design purposes. Here's this kind of beige area. It ends up going up to right around there. So this is all going to be beige colored. Here is this little wing jutting back in to where it goes down. That's interesting. Okay. So this is definitely wider up here than down here. So let me go from here to here. So we're going to make the beige area be a little bit more narrow. Let's try, so this is going to come up here. And that's this thing here. Let's see. That's probably too steep. Alright, so let's do that. So this area here, this is all like the brown armor per se, which is higher. This segment is probably, this segment here is kind of elevation wise the highest part of the miniature. This is a little bit lower, and this brown segment up here, this is a little bit lower still. I think what I might do, So it doesn't really... Let's try this. So let's do this to go up like that. Alright, so this line's probably not going to be here. What I am going to do is do something like this. There we go. I like that. That's looking pretty cool right there. So there's our base. I think that's going to be pretty much the basic shape of the Peregrine Merlin. Now the Merlin is the gunship version. So I'm going to put some guns on this thing. Why not? I'm thinking... There's 2 guns on either side, which, like I said, these are the basic fire cannons. These are kind of the standard cannons the Heragul will carry. Now, being such a small warship, these guys up here, these are the fire cannons. They're relatively small compared to the size of your warship miniature, but this guy is going to be a lot smaller than this thing. Even size comparison, this token is probably too big, scale-wise. I'm just going to make the miniature about this size just for practical purposes. But the reality is, it's, you know, it's probably even, I don't know, it might be, I don't know, maybe it's about this size. It might be, it's probably would be a little bit smaller proportional compared to the frigate here. But the point being, though, is that the small cannons here are going to be a lot larger on this miniature because the size of the miniature is going to be boosted relative to the size of how the ship would actually be. And that means these cannons are going to be freaking huge. So there's going to be ones aligned along with the hull, and then we'll have a second one kind of popping out here. Same thing, and you're going to be able to see a little bit of a muzzle here. I'm not going to want to make the muzzle super deep for casting reasons, but there's going to be a little bit there. And because, once again, the resin is coming in from this direction, I don't have to worry about these sticking out because the resin's going to fill up like this, and then it's, trust me, it works. Because resin fills up this way, air goes out that way. Alright, so let me get a little bit darker pencil out here, one that's kind of sharp, and start really figuring out what the final lines of the ship is going to be. So I'm thinking, here we got this one coming like this, so there's the front of the wing. Like, you know, I've done so many different sketches, concept, like, oh, this points this way, whatever it is, blah blah blah, kind of a thing that it's got a little messy to it, but that's all right. Here's the front of the fire cannons, and these two are going to be the same size, even if they don't look exactly the same size in the concept art. They're going to be, so it's important to note. Let me make some notes for myself. Guns, same size. And also, let's do 3. So here's what we're going to do. 3. So what I'm doing here, this would be 2, not this. 2, 2. No, let's make this 1. So what I'm doing here by numbering these things, I'm kind of approximating the elevation per se. 0, and then the engines would be -1. So I get an idea of what's the highest point in the ship and what's the lowest point in the ship, and that's going to come in later on when I start doing the side and the side concept art, the fronts, and so on like that. So we have our main canopy, like the front of the canopy goes here. This is going to be like a viewport kind of a thing. This is, like I said, this is a ship small enough to where it actually might have a cockpit where the crew sits. I think I'll probably have some detail in here, so we'll do, like, I don't know, something like that, just to give a little bit of texture to it, nothing fancy. Let's see, I think I want... We'll make that be the final area, that way this can be staggered a little bit more. And I'm gonna have to add some more texture to these inside areas. I'll work on that in a minute. What did I decide? I think I decided this was going to be the main line. Yeah, this is all scratched out. So here's our main armor line there. This is approximately straight. And then we had the second level armor panel here. That's elevated. And then we need the armor bands. You know, those aren't on here, are they? That I wanted to carry over from here. So okay, so let me think about this. Is this whole system here where it slants up, Here's what I think I'm going to do. Well, let me fill in the end of the wing first. Alright. So there's the end of the wing right there. I'm going to have this armor band, because this 3 area here is going to be higher, going to be sitting on top of this wing part here. Let me just do armor band like that. And that's going to kind of probably be a little bit lower, so this would be probably a 1. We'll make this be a 1, so we know that 3 is higher than 1. We'll do another armor band here. Same thing, this is going to be 1 also. So kind of like we're bringing over this aspect of a design from the Pale Fox to where you have these armor bands that sit on top of it. This is 1 here. And then what I can do for this armor band up front, this can run the full length. Make it something like this. Let me make a note. I want this distance, and this distance to all be equal. I'm trying to remember from geometry, what's the symbol for equal distance? I think it's, is that it? I don't remember. Let's do, I don't remember my geometry symbols very well, apparently. Okay, so these are all equal width. This would be 1 here. We're going to make this area be 2. This is 1. This is 0. So cross this thing out. So now I've got my armor banding that I wanted. And I've got the elevations of it defined. Okay, excellent. Alright. So let's drop that in there. And what I probably will do is put some cooling vents, just like the Pale Fox, because those are kind of cool and give a little bit of detail to the ship. Okay. And then this runs like that. And that's supposed to be a direct extension of this thing. Here's our so here's the engine that's on the edge of the wing. I'm trying to decide if I want to do something kind of cool with it. Like, I could do... The only reason I want to keep the engine perfectly perpendicular, it just makes life easier when it comes time to resin cast it. Because if I wanted to make if I wanted to make the engine slanted like that, you would have to make it clear to whoever is cutting off the sprue pieces of the resin that this is supposed to be angled like this. Otherwise, they're just going to cut it off flat anyway. So let's just assume that that's going to be the case, and that's how it's going to work. And we have this going like that. And then here we go. We got the back of the wing slopes down into where the main engines are going to be. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to have some nice detail along the bottom of the engines and stuff like that. Okay, so there is the final kind of shape layout of the ship from a concept art perspective. Let me start filling in where I want some smaller details to start going. Cooling vents. I've got these stepped ribs going on here, just like on the Pale Fox, where there's little cooling vents at each of these stepped ribs. I'm going to carry that over. So let me just get my other pencil back out. I'm thinking here. There's going to be 1 there. And let's start. I'm just dropping these in. This is just these things. Now, the new Heragul ships have lots of cooling vents. One, it gives them a bit of a reason as to why they've been redesigned, because when ships that if they're in combat for a long period of time, that's when they're putting the most stress in the engines. Spacecraft don't spend a lot of fuel sitting around. They spend fuel doing crazy super hard maneuvers in orbit. And that's going to put a lot of stress on the ships. Weapons generate heat, presumably, when they fire, all that kind of stuff. And of course, being in orbit of a planet, when you're in direct sunlight, that's lots of heat too. So that's one of the reasons why I gain a lot more cooling vents. I'm just kind of taking that approach, but there is a very practical reason. In space, it's hard to keep things cool, especially when you're in the direct sunlight of, say, a star. So I've been putting a lot of cooling vents in the ship. It's kind of cool, and it makes a little bit of sense. So I think I'm going to have some cooling vents back here as well. We'll kind of slope them in line with the wing. And by the cooling vents, I'm going to just kind of angle them, indicate, or these hatch marks. That's going to tell me that they're going to be they're supposed to be gray, because they're kind of bare metal kind of a thing. And I'll do the same thing over here for the engines. I can't do anything fancy on the backs of the engines. Like I said, those are the fill points for the resin casting. But I can do some kind of cool stuff along the sides. You can't really see a whole lot here from the top view, so I'm going to have to work on some concept arts for the side view and get an idea of what we're dealing with. But over here, what I'm probably going to have, I'm going to have vents. Now, I want to make them easy to cast. If I were to design the vents, if I were to get the other pencil out here before I start messing around with things, because I already screwed it up. If I were to do that kind of a vent, where it's a rectangular vent, I can tell you from experience with the Kolith Guard warships, the sides are covered in vents like this. Or just any kind of right angle, where the right angle is directly perpendicular to the flow of the resin, and there's nowhere for the resin, the air bubbles to go. Air bubbles are going to get trapped in here, and it's going to cause all sorts of problems casting. But if I design triangular, if I can do the thrusters like that, where it's a triangle, what that does is the resin fills up this corner well, and it pushes the air up along this edge closer in and funnels the air out that way. So I'm going to have a whole bunch of triangle vents along here, which would in theory mean that it's not that the vents of the thrusters are not vents. The thrusters of the ship are necessarily that shape. It's just that is like here we are our jets shooting out, right? That the thrusters are simply tilted that way at the moment. But it's a positioning that makes them very easy to cast. I'll probably have like 5 of these along here. And let's see, I might try to do, I wonder if I can get away with that. You know, little tiny fiddly bits, like there are little hoses and things right here. Those tend to do a good job of trapping air bubbles. I might be able to get away with them right here. I think I might actually try to do that. Do very tiny little hoses that are like fuel or something. But actually, you know, I won't do that, because in theory, there isn't really a whole, unless I can make it like a control linkage to where it would, in theory, rotate with the entire vent. I don't want to do that, because, you know, in theory, the vent could be facing like this and firing thrusters out that way. It's just not, because because of how, for resin casting purposes, I want them all to go one direction. So that is going to be like what we see for our thruster vents, and they're going to run along here and run along the other side as well. When we get up here, what I think I'm going to do is probably borrow some cues from the El Soren hammerhead up here, and we're going to have, let me get this guy. Let's do something like this. So we'll probably have several armor panels kind of stepping up on top of each other, doing that little step up thing. So we can do that, go up here. And then this one will kind of follow along like that. And then I'll have a little bit of an elevation increase right here, I think. So there'll be a little bit of a step up kind of a thing. Or maybe a little bit further somewhere. Let's do, I don't know, I'm just kind of picking a spot really. Let's say right here, and here is an elevated armor panel. There's that. And then that can go up to there. And that can go back there. Same thing over here. Elevated armor panel, up, up, up. And then this can go like, I don't know. Sure, why not? Make that go over that way. Let's see, and then that can give So we got a little bit of detail there because we got some of these stepping up armor panels going on. I don't know how. Actually, I'm gonna do this. So we're gonna ignore this little thing right here. We're just gonna make another step up armor panel. So we get a little bit. So this is a little bit higher up in this area, and just kind of step up a little bit. All right. So we know these are cooling vents. I could make them multi-segmented. I'm thinking from a resin casting perspective. We're getting really small, so I don't think I'm gonna put too much detail on these cooling vents because we're getting really tiny. Alright, well whatever. I think that's pretty good for tonight. I've been at this almost an hour. It went by really fast. A lot faster than when I paint miniatures. Huh, what do you know? So okay, so I think I'm gonna call this done for the main initial concept art phase of the Heragul Peregrine, or in this case the Merlin, because this is the gunship version of the guns up here. Excuse me. I think this looks pretty good. And next time, I will carry on doing the kind of concept detail work. So what I'm gonna start doing is looking at some of these areas in particular. I think primarily we're going to look at the bottom, we're going to look at the engines, and kind of do some large drawings of those to get an idea of what I'm thinking for the engines. They'll probably end up looking very much like what the Heragul hammerhead here has. But that we will see that next time around. And then I also will have to, at some point, start putting together the top, side, and different views. But that's going to be definitely for a future live streaming episode. So let me go ahead and switch back to my main camera. So once again, I'm Jason. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them here on the YouTube video, because at this point the live stream is just about done, so I can't answer any more questions, unfortunately. But it is, like I said, watch us on YouTube, post the comments there. And one more time, if you want to buy the miniatures showing off during this whole process, you can find them over at kalidasia.com/live, the URL being right there on the bottom of the screen. Bottom of the screen. And you can also find a copy of Legends of Kalidasia Heroes of the Heragul for sale, which is the space combat rule set that all this stuff is part of. And then this guy back here is also one of the characters that shows up. His head's blocked by my image. Anyway, this is the guy that's one of the characters in the promo video. Then he sits back there. So with that all out of the way, and once again, I want to thank you guys for watching. Have a good night, and hopefully I'll see you next week here, Thursday about 8 p.m., where I continue the process of designing the Merlin/Peregrine Heragul Corvette warship. Thank you for watching.